Hello, everybody out there in internet land. Welcome to today's Theory Forge Friday. We have some awesome action to go and talk about here today. It is going to be super fun. And to start us off, Phantom X, who's actually going to be running the show here today.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Theory Forge Friday. We have a lot to talk about, but before we actually get to our topics, we have a very special guest, the leader of the Colossus community, Tenma. Welcome. What just happened there?
Trying to get my camera
there we
lined
go.
up here. There we go.
I saw half your head. I didn't know what was on. Welcome to the show. We are very happy to have you here. So I think everyone pretty much knows you. You're well known, but go ahead and give us a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Let's see. Well, I'm a builder. That's pretty much what I am. I do Twitch streaming when I can. Recently took a job offer and back to work now, but so I'm not able to stream as much as I used to. But I'm still pumping out tutorials and all that kind of stuff. So that's pretty much me.
Yeah, those are hugely helpful. I have to say I am not a builder, but I can tell you that when I've actually tried recently to revisit it, and I've used some of yours, and I'm still not a builder, but they are really well done. So, and everyone else, we have the full cast today. So, the wonderful Sog, the handsome Neuro, Felix, I don't know what title to give you, and the golden voice of Geo are all joining us. We actually, this is probably enough stuff that we could do two episodes, but we really wanted to go kind of build off of our interview last week, where we got to talk with Dave and Steve about sort of the gameplay loop, December blueprint, the stuff that is coming. And it's really good that we have Tenma here, because up to this point, everything's been a builder's paradise. That's what this game has been. So I'm really eager to sort of hear your input of how you things will change and how it will impact the builders who have been the backbone of the game so far. So with that being said, I'm just going to leave it open to y'all. The blueprint is full of wonderful goodies. Is there anything anyone was specifically interested about when we kind of threw this topic around today?
Oh man,
Silence.
for me, it's just how long we've been hearing about these features and how long it goes back. Going all the way back to January when a lot of these features were first talked about and the hype train started. I remember actually going back like the very first live feature round. It was before we even got a chance to play the game. I just laid out all of my the stuff that I wanted to see for the game, and sure enough, a lot of the stuff actually was stuff that was slated for the game. It just has taken a while, and now we're finally really starting to get into that stuff, and it's really going to feel like a solid game coming into January.
I'm actually going to try to find the blueprint really quickly so we could post it up in the chat so people can see it. Do we know where it is on the forums?
I've got it right here. Let me paste it right now into the chat.
Sweet.
Gotcha.
I mean, you could have said it better, Neuro. There's so much.
There's a few. Yeah, there's a lot. The very first one I think is actually fairly important. Achievements are going to go into the game. Saying that it's going to make it feel more like a game, I'm not sure what they mean by that, but
Well, I mean, I can kind of talk a little bit about that because it's something that I've been saying and feeling for a long time. Is I'm gonna kind of use it in relativity to the competitions. A lot of people in the competitions are talking about, they want prizes to participate, and a lot of people are even participating, for example, in the Halloween contest, because they want to get they have this long-term goal for the game. They want to establish themselves. They want to be able to play the game and get something from it other than personal satisfaction from building. So that competition gave people exclusive suits, those skeleton suits. It gave them exclusive content like the props and whatnot. Now that feels good to that's what MMOs have generally always been about, progression. And by giving us the ability to have things like achievements, it's going to be the first time where people have the ability to, inside of Landmark, get a sort of linear progression or some sort of satisfaction from their actions, other than what they can create for themselves personally from their artistic, ability. And that to me is one of the most valuable things from a perspective of getting new players. People can come into the game, but if there's nothing for them that SOE is giving them to do, then they'll just become lost in the world. So I think that's what they mean by it'll finally become a game. It'll finally be something that somebody can log into and play to somebody else's game instead of creating a world.
The one big thing that I have a discrepancy over with the competitions is, I mean, you may have 200 entries and only about 20 people win, but everybody else has put in almost just as much time as the winners have, but they don't get nothing. And I think they should at least get maybe a prop saying, okay, yeah, you submitted an item, at least you got something back out of it. You got this prop that nobody else got unless they actually submitted something to the competition. Where you've got the winners, they've got something special all their own. They've got the prop, plus they've got this trophy thing that they've got on their property now, which is another type of prop. And plus that particular item may make it to, the gallery island or whatever.
They also get that exclusive skeleton outfit for the Halloween one that nobody's ever going to be able to get any other way.
Exactly.
And
That's the only unfairness that I kind of see there, because I mean there's a lot of those builds that were just mind-blowingly good, and we never saw them. So
Right.
it just, and then you put that much time into something and you don't get anything out of it. You don't even get a recognition of any sort. Then I think those people should at least get something back out of it.
That's a good point.
Just for
And
time purposes.
There's a really, that would be something that they could do fairly easy. And is the one thing I would think is they would have to make sure that they put, as long as it meets the minimum competition requirements, just so that people can't submit anything, to try and get the extra thing. But that's a great point. That will encourage even more people to probably participate in the competitions to begin with. So that's a good point. I kind of like that.
And it goes back into the creating that game feeling, because that's what we want. We want people to feel like there's something that they can do and achieve or gain from inside of Landmark the game. And I mean, I think most of us are on board with what you're saying here. And that would even create a sort of game that people want to play. But as we all know, there's a very big curve when it comes to skill in the game. So most people who are not so proficient, they have no reason and incentive to play Landmark now. When it comes out, when these things come out, currencies, harvesting editions, crafting editions, many of the other things that are listed in the blueprint, that is when people will finally get the desire and something out of actually participating inside of Landmark.
Yeah, that's something that I can totally agree with, because I enjoy the building, but I'm super competitive and I'm not great at building. So when these competitions come up, it's almost like a burnout feeling for me, because I don't feel like I'm quite up to the level where, I'll be making stuff that wins. But at the same time, that I want to participate in something that's social with everybody. You're getting involved in something. So really, I just help with people's things. And in that instance, like when we've had the past competitions, I just helped participate on other people's builds a little bit. But it's the killing of the, I don't know, I guess the thing I'm trying to say is that, having that kind of gap in ability when building right now is the only thing for people to do and engage really a lot in. Having that gap kind of creates this cutoff, so that it's kind of like broken up the community a little bit. So I don't feel
like there should be competitions at all. If we're gonna giving a consolation prize to people who don't win doesn't make people feel any better. Well, there shouldn't be winners. This is let's get together and let's make things to help make this a better game, So if you make something and if you submit it, you instantly get the reward, even if you just submit the same house for everything just to get the reward. Who cares? And then whether or not your thing shows up in the world or pops up, the reward should be that one day somebody is walking around and they see the something that you've made and they're like, "Hey Tenma, there's your ogre build," and you didn't even know. You didn't even know that it was in. And I think that would be awesome. I don't like this. Let's talk about who won. I think you leave it so you haven't advertised winners. You haven't said what it is, and that any time as things change or as a new procedural, like for this team up event, every time a new area is put together and they're generating the caves, there's a chance that something that you or your team put together is what goes in there. And people have a way of knowing what it is when they're there, and have a way of seeing how it was contributed when they're there. But that's when that should be the feeling of the reward, not it should be a big thank you, all of you, for helping this wonderful process. We had so many great things make it into the game, and then if you stumble across it in the game, that's your reward. I don't like the announcement
totally
of winners.
against that. Honestly, competition breeds ingenuity, and honestly, look at the Karen competition. I mean, that right there can tell you, everybody was like, "Oh yeah, let's freaking, we're gonna make like this badass, build or whatever," and the level of complexity of the builds went astronomical in that. And just because people were competing with other people to get a better build out of it. And that is going to end up turning around and have better builds all the way across the board. So to go against that, yeah, no. I think competition should be there just for the ingenuity and pushing it out to the next level. So
it does,
back
but
to this
at the same time, you have to balance that burnout possibility, because when you do have like intense competition, although it does breed excellence in certain types of people, it sometimes it does the exact opposite in other people when they are get really competitive and then they get up but they don't actually win. They get a real like turned off feeling, burned out. So it's definitely something that has to be worked on right now, because the current model, it doesn't work well when people are, like you said, the Karen competition, and I looked at a ton of those builds, were phenomenal, and there were some really great ones that didn't even make it, to like the final cut, I guess. And it's like, if I was somebody that invested all that time into it, like I might, have a little bit of a negative vibe maybe from like, investing so much time and then nothing, which I know you talked about having kind of this consolation prize, but I think there needs to be some more like core element to the game that's rewarding necessarily than just here's an achievement or here's a prop, because I'm not somebody who likes collections or titles or whatever. I like to actually like experience the social fun gameplay and get the reward that way. So I don't know. It's kind of, they need to incentivize more people participating for a reward that's maybe not necessarily just something you get, but actually the experience is rewarding. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And a really competitive environment doesn't always create like the most enjoyable competitive experience.
So back to the original thing though, achievements. That's competitions, are a part of that. The thing that I've had a hard time rectifying is how you tie that. We all know how combat we've seen those in many other games, right? Combat and collecting and all these different types, but how are they going to create achievements for building? That's what I'm curious. Is it for you made a straight line, you made a perfect angle?
Depends on what kind of game we're gonna have, I guess.
Beyond competition, how are they going to do that? I don't understand, because there is a huge dichotomy between very good builders like Tenma and people like me who can come in and maybe make something that resembles a square.
I'm not a very good. I am not a very good builder. I am a good builder, but not a very good builder. I mean, you put me next to like Bride and Fugazi. Those guys, to me, are like at the pinnacle of the building in the game. So
but yeah. So you see what I'm saying?
It's the way I look at it.
how do you create an achievement system though that rewards both sides? Is I guess what I'm getting at as far as building.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's a perfect answer to how you get everybody involved in it. I honestly don't think there is, because there's such a diversity in how everybody sees things and how they react to things. So there is no one fix all for to get that fixed. And I think their approach so far has been okay. It's not been great, but it's been okay. Now they make some slight changes to encourage people to actually participate, and that's having something just for being able to get in there and participate. I honestly think that is a next step to it, and however they progress that to bring even more people into it, I don't know.
Well, I think one of the things that would really help is, instead of having competitions where you kind of toy around for 4 weeks and then they finally give you the competition rules, and this is mostly talking about like the first 2 or 3, and then finally at the towards the very end they finally give you the rules, and you have 2 or 3 weeks to either take what you've got and make it conform to that, or build something completely from scratch, utilizing the stuff that you'd been experimenting on before. And then that's it. There's just a one shot and it's over. I feel like that's actually a waste of the momentum. If after the first round of Karen winners, they immediately gave feedback on all the runners up and all the ones that didn't make it, and said, now all of you, you've got 2 weeks, come back with your next round, and let's see what you get, and keep on doing that as a repetitive process. And I don't know if there would be any issue with having multiple races overlapping on one another. If you finally finish your dwarf build and the dwarves are going or whatever, that's awesome, and then you go back to your Karen build that didn't make it, and you can fix that up and get it in on the next 2-week cycle, or however that would work. Just something that would allow people to keep working and keep iterating on all the stuff that we've designed, rather than having to completely stop and completely change races for the next competition.
Well, I think the changing of the races is just so they can get a basic concept. And once they get the basic concept, when they come back around for the next iteration, like the Dark Elves again, what's going to come out on the next iteration of the next competition of the Dark Elves? A lot of those that didn't win the first time, they'll take the new concept, the new tools they got, the new techniques they got, and they'll spice all that up. And then the stuff that they enter on the next iteration, I think, will actually be just mind-blowing compared to the first iteration that came through. So I think it's just a progression. What we see now versus what we see, 2 or 3 months from now. Heck, we may have, that voxel forge by then, and be able to actually manipulate voxels, on the fly, instead of having to sit there and go, to try to make the thing that you're trying to achieve,
And well, to talk a little bit about achievements and bridging a gap between achievements and building, we talked a little bit about the competitions. We talked about the different race competitions, and there's no reason that, for example, everybody who submits something to this competition gets an achievement that tells other people later on in Landmark, like, hey, I participated in this achievement, because people want notoriety. A lot of people do anyway. And so that's a really cool way to be like, hey, look, I go back this far, and it's a very easy thing for them to put in. So I feel like that's like a really cool way to put the competitions and the achievement system together. We can look at the achievement system in many different ways. We don't have a lot of information about it, but I've played a game, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. The entire point of the game is just to unlock achievements. It's kind of like a 2D indie game, and the entire time you're just unlocking achievements. And then there's other games where they have achievement systems where everything is a hassle. Like, if you want to get an achievement, you need to spend 20 hours in the game. And I want to know personally, and I think that would depend on how Landmark turns out and EverQuest Next, but I want to know where in the spectrum of achievements we're looking to get with EverQuest Next. Right now it can be a temporary solution for the lack of like closed loop gameplay that they have, to give somebody incentive to be a part of the competitions, and just to explore and mine. Hey, I just mined my 500,000th piece of iron. I mean, Let's do it.
I'm excited
Ah,
for the stuff that's going to come along after, like probably like the second half of December stuff, where more stuff gets added to where I don't even have to be upset about the building competitions because I'm going to have other things to do. Like they've really talked a lot about adding a lot of depth to the crafting, which is something that it's been lacking in so many MMOs for the longest time. And Dave Georgeson being such a passionate crafter, as the one of the lead people, with the say in the project, it's really cool because I'm really hoping that you know they're able to bring something new to the table, and we've seen little glimpses of it with the different like branches of the crafting system. So I'm really excited to see those other branches come in with the imbuing and the refining and the salvaging stuff because for me, like that helps bring about the sandbox feel even more so than building, I think, because building, like, yeah, you get to create in the world, but with the claim system, you're just kind of in these pockets. But once you start adding an in-depth crafting system, then you get real social gameplay because then you have an economy start to develop when people are able to craft unique, really hard to make items because they've specialized there. You start to get people interacting more so than they would for necessarily a build thing, which building creates pockets, but like building because you get a bunch of friends together that are like-minded and you build something and you're kind of in your different areas. Whereas when it comes to crafting, your friend might not want to be a master crafter in that thing. You might go to a complete stranger and it starts to connect this greater community. And that's what I'm excited to see come in is more crafting and more things to do that are going to bring everybody together, not just bring a handful of people together or a large group of people that are like-minded together. I love MMOs for being this environment where you get complete strangers interacting with one another and needing each other. And right now that's not in the game. Like you don't need somebody else,
well,
some complete stranger in the game right now. Just there's no mechanic that requires it.
well, we've got a member in Colossus right now, Ferd Burfel. He has two of the biggest claims you've ever seen in your life, and he has 1,000 material pallets stacked up like it was, Home Depot. And, that's all, that's what he does. He goes around and that's all he does is mine, and so we can already kind of see what you're talking about there, where everybody kind of has their niche. They have, your gatherers, you have your, people that will end up being, crafters or, metal workers of some sort. And then, of course, you have your builders on the other opposite end of it, utilizing all those pieces that each of those individual groups are actually, creating. So the base part of that system, I believe, is there. It's just a matter of refinement, getting that type of a system put in there to where, the crafter goes, "Hey, Ferd, throw me 1,000 copper," and, he gets the 1,000 copper and he turns that into, I don't know, like a statue of Dave's head or something. I don't know, and, of course that gets passed on and it gets put up on the mantle somewhere. I just think it'd be kind of interesting long term to see how it all kind of comes together once they get these other systems put into play.
I think
So,
there's a gap in the cycle. I think the gap is that I have not yet heard any way in which I feel a builder can give back to a crafter or gatherer. Now, what does a crafter or gatherer want that a builder can make? A builder always needs materials, right? A
mhm.
builder always needs materials. And if you're a builder and you don't want to go out and gather, you need to talk to a gatherer. But if I'm a gatherer or a crafter, I don't need a template. I don't need anything built from me. What what can a builder possibly trade other than making something pretty? So, other than a gatherer or a crafter being a patron of the arts and giving things freely to support people making good things, how does the circle complete? And that's a big question that I haven't heard an answer. And
But right
Cody
now, I
here
don't
says
know.
a builder can give crafters a place to sell their goods. No, because you can just put the prop, which is the sell item, on a claim without building anything.
Okay.
That's
Well,
right now. It's a lot of it's subjective though, and that's the thing to note is we don't have any reason for there to be a crafter either. Like the crafter and the builder. I mean, both of them are kind of aimlessly wandering at this point. And the circle is even bigger than the circle that you just talked about between the two of them. There's so much more like content missing that none of them can play into each other. And so when we have both of them are making a subjective or building, even though you're building a piece that's an in-game prop, you're still going to just build something that looks cool. There's no point in building it other than a subjective competition from the devs. And that's the problem that we see that's something that you see in almost all other games, and that's, in my opinion, one of the biggest problems that we see in Landmark is the lack of, like I said, reasons to put these things out there, reasons to craft, reasons to build. Once we get those reasons, once there is a reason to build a place like maybe Coda just said, so that there can be an economy in the game and like go inside of the most beautiful building, people will probably want to go inside of the most beautiful building because that's where they want to buy their stuff. And they, maybe that person built a really cool statue of a sword, and so that's an armor shop, and so you are a weapon shop. I'm sorry, and you go in there, and then there's props and it looks beautiful, and there's also all the stuff behind the counter that the NPC has is stuff that somebody's crafted, and then behind it there's the story to back it up. So that's a reason that is kind of like an in-game reason to build and craft. But right now, like I said, there is no reason to do any of it.
Yeah, I said in chat there, the content is really the main thing builders can provide. We really don't have the tools to provide that. We don't have quest options. We don't have encounter building. We don't have, loot that you can do. You can get at the end of some horrible maze or something. We don't have any of that. So, I guess maybe the treasure at the end of a maze is something, but then you have to pay for the materials every time. Felix, what were you gonna say?
I was just thinking. I thought of an idea. Just came into my head while you guys were all talking, and I was listening to your different points. But I was kind of thinking about how depending on the way they roll out achievements, how it could start to bridge some of this big gap that we're talking about, where builders don't have as much to offer. With achievements specifically, if they start adding things where like builders get achievements by building on other people's claims, somebody gives you permissions and you build something for them on their claim, you get a specific achievements, and there's some type of progression system throughout that to where it actually incentivizes builders to take their materials that they've gotten and actually expend them on other people's and create some sort of interconnections between all these groups. It really depends on how they want to roll that out, but seeing that, and there might be other things that we don't know of too, as far as related to the crafting system, maybe how crafters might need some type of like player built thing. I don't know, it depends on the way that they want to do things. But I was just thinking that we might see some stuff as early as achievements of ways incentivizing builders to cooperate, and maybe incentivizing other people, like they get an achievement if somebody else builds on their claim, a certain amount of voxels, or depending on what the achievements are.
yeah. Right now, Diggs and Sog are just bashing it out on chat. I see somebody's skill level in building as a resource, and if I was doing nothing but mining, and that's what I enjoyed to do. That's all I like to do. I like to go out there, take my pick, and slam it up against the ground as many times as I possibly can until I get the material I'm looking for. That's what I enjoy to do. Someone else who has spent a lot of time, learning all these little voxel Nancy poop things and are really awesome builders, if I can't build anything but a block in the world, and that's about as the length of my abilities take it, then yes, then that person's skill level of creating houses and making these awesome castle looking things and stuff like that, that is a resource to me. I can go to that person and say, look, I'll give you 500,000 stone if you'll take 200,000 of that and build me a castle. that shows me that that skill level has value. It's worth 300,000 stone. So
All right. Can I
So-
to elaborate? I my concern comes from if there's value just to the creative nature, then what's the value of having the other part of the game outside of it? It's about bringing it all together and creating a functional loop to be able to support a large variety of players. Like, if the game is like people are suggesting, oh, yeah, it's just a place for people's creative outlet to be able to make content for people to experience, then why do we need to go gather to get stuff? Then
Right.
then that other part of the then from that perspective, the other part is the non-valuable. The fact that people are putting in effort to go gather stuff is an artificial mechanic that shouldn't be there. If it's really just about the creative aspect, it should be focused on that. Resources should be available. It would be trading between builders would be all about templates, and there shouldn't be direct trading. It should all be, station cash, or you get somebody to put their own template down or something, and you completely monetize that. But we're talking about having a world with open world gathering. We're talking about there to be combat and danger and having to go down into the depths of these caves with a chance of it taking a very long time to get some resources. And the idea is that the reason you want to do that, other than just wanting to go fight monsters in a cave, is because some builder needs it, and you're that part of the economy supplying it to a builder. Okay, but then because you're interested in the open world, what are you getting from the builder to support your open world gameplay? See, I don't see how it all meshes together. Right now we've got a bunch of people who really value the creative nature. I value, to an extent, visiting a claim and going, yep, you did a good job, great. You got something you could teach me, great. But I see that as being very different from the open world part of the gameplay. And I would like, instead of these answers saying, oh yeah, just being able to build and just having that building there is the reward. No, I want a real answer. I'm not ignoring that as an answer. I'm saying that answer, if it is the answer, doesn't work for the game bringing it all together.
So here's the hard part that we don't know as far as connecting these two is, yeah, what is Sony going to give what are they going to give the people that create these buildings, that create these scenarios? What are they going to give them to give to players to come to come onto their claim, other than, like you're saying, to come on and other than look, what you could do from a photograph? What is going to be the reward to the player to come on and experience this? And I think we don't know that. What is the reward? Is it going to be equal to open world exploration and monster hunting? I mean, we don't really know. And
that's one of the things I was thinking about in the past couple of weeks as we started to get this new blueprint, and they were talking about more things and story bricks coming up soon. Like, I was starting to think about this problem too, this issue of the loop not completing. And I was, we've been trying to, I know me, like Sog and other people on Theory Forge, when we had the developers, we tried to talk about these things when we had them on here to answer questions, but, we really want to see, how story bricks is going to work in relation to claim space, because, depending on the way things are pocketed, something that builders could feasibly give with the game mechanics to other players is a point of NPC interaction and attraction to NPCs, depending on what they build, or different systems of AI they place on their claims that might come and go from the open world and attract different things that might actually cause players to say, hey, can I have access to your claim so that I can battle a certain type of creature or something that it might be attracting, or different things like that. There are ways to use the AI to do this, but as of yet we haven't seen anything about us being able to affect anything outside of our claim space. With AI or with any open world any real open world building, like if you build anything in the open world, it just pretty much instantly disappears. I think there needs to be a little more persistence in that to create, a more conjoined game environment. But I don't know. I'm totally getting off point, but that's kind of what I was
One of the
thinking.
suggestions I had was to ensure that to make it so when you place down a crafting station, it has to be placed within a voxel structure with certain features. Kind of like we got the this idea for or the template for the cave parts. It has to be this big. It has to have these features. So if you want to place a forge down, if you want to have the ability to craft at your own station, you need the forge. A station that you make is just one element of it. The other element is a voxel template and structure that needs to be built with resources. And that template has to be flagged and fit the forge house dimensions. So then I'm just an open world player, but I want to make my own thing. But I still need. I can't just place the forge down on an empty claim and leave it there, and now I can craft my own claim wherever I want. I can even pick it up and carry it with me, and I can place a claim wherever I want and then pick that claim up. No, I have to have a claim, and I have to have a forge house. So I'm not a builder. I browse. I open up the gallery and I go, wow, there are all these people who have put up forge house templates. And I say, well, there's a 25 SC one that sucks, and right next to it I see this 500 station cache awesome one. So it's like flashing right at me right then. So I know that I need to have this. Either I can try to build one myself, but it might not look good. But now I'm talking about something that is my real home in the game. I don't know that I can make something really, really good. Do I want the 25-cent one, or do I want the $5 one? And a lot of people are going to want the $5 one. And then the money goes in, because that's the other part of the cycle. There have to be people buying things. And right now I feel like builders bleed in the system.
Well, we've gone through. I want to say that since the beginning of this conversation, we've gone through a lot of different scenarios that I think that we've kind of been debating a lot of them, but they all seem to be right. But we need to acknowledge where exactly we're talking about and when we're talking about, because the game as it stands today is totally different from what advantages and what builders need to be doing to be valuable today than it's going to be when we have the closed gaming loop. And I've noticed that like a lot of the conversation, like some things that I think I heard Tenma say to me sound great now and today. For some of the stuff that you're talking about, Sog, I feel like it's going to be better later on down the line. So I want to know, if we're talking about a closed game loop, in that case, I think I can see a ton of reasons why builders will be valuable. And I'm going to throw one out there and then I know, Nero, I know you want to talk too, so I'm going to let you go. But the thing is, I feel if we look out in real life, and we look at marketing, okay? What is the difference between a Prada shoe and a Payless shoe? The difference is going to be a little bit of it is materials, but it doesn't quantify the difference in price. A lot of it is visual. It's, this is what socially is good. This is what, looks good to me. It's a perception. And in Landmark, when you go and you want to buy, weapons, or you want to buy XYZ, for example, you have a builder you have a crafter who's crafted a bunch of materials. You have a store, maybe somebody who's built a really cool storyline around their land, and they have a bunch of shops. So that was where the story bricks came in. Then you have you have the people to sell to, which is the PvPers. Well, where does the builder come in? The builder makes something that looks good, that other people will perceive as more valuable, and that is where the value will come from the builders. And that there are 15 more reasons why, but that is one very one that we can observe in real life, and I feel like will absolutely transfer into the game of Landmark.
I honestly think that merge point's going to be, the one thing that hasn't been spoken about, and that is the quest makers.
Yeah,
we haven't talked about that. That's story bricks. I mean, we've got somebody I may build, but maybe I want to have a story for my thing. So of course there's going to be the story makers, and I mean you got a bunch of people out there that's their niche, and that may be that bridge point somehow, some way. I don't know. There's a lot of other stuff out there.
For me, getting my building skills together was in many ways just so that way when I actually do get story bricks and all of that stuff, I'm not floundering around the tools to try to build something so that I can then put the enemies in it and have them bash your faces. So there's actually a few things that I kind of want to touch on here. So the Forge House idea that Sog was mentioning, we talked about that a little bit on Wednesday on Theory Forge, or excuse me, not Theory Forge, on a Live Feature Rant. It actually reminds me of like Terraria, for example, how in order for something to actually count as a house, it needs to be a 4x8 interior space, sealed walls all the way around, back wall all the way around, a light source, a piece of furniture, and a door to get in and out. And anything short of that, it doesn't actually count as a house. But once you have that, an NPC can actually come into your world and populate it, or you can actually assign it as a spawn point. So I definitely appreciate that sort of thing. I could see that actually working out quite a bit. I could actually see that even being extrapolated further, like the Forge House idea, or maybe there's specific props or prop and voxel combinations. Like you actually have to create like a prop voxel dynamo structure that you have to use as the power supply for all of your stations. That would be a really interesting thing, because then it's not just, oh, I'm a builder making things pretty. It's, oh, I'm an engineer, I'm a problem solver. I have to put all the things in the right places so I can power all of my machinery and, have it look cool and functional, so all the, the particle effects that'll flow through it are going to look right. And, I could see that sort of stuff being one other way. So instead of just being someone who builds something pretty and puts tools down that anybody can use, in order to have more than the basic tools that you have at the Spire, you actually have to build very specific things that actually allows them to interface with the build. There's even other things with that I'm thinking about, is like the idea of the limited access to stations that we have right now. If you build a refinery, it's yours. You're the only one using it. I think that's another problem that's been affecting builders and their relevance right now. Why would I want to go to someone else's build and use their stations to make my ingots or make whatever, when I can get 30% more if I use the stations at my own place that I built up on my own? It's kind of a weird thing. It almost feels like they built something in from the get-go to limit the effectiveness of builders by making the tools exclusive to only them. If they just changed that, I think that would alone be something to really make builders more relevant in the world. It would actually make sense to put little crafting hubs and stuff like that here and there throughout the islands, like we used to see in Alpha.
Well, just those are really great points. But to kind of close out this topic that we're dragging on quite a ways, like, I really think people need to before we get all caught in the details, people just have to kind of understand the basics that, any great MMO that's going to encourage massive social gameplay kind of has a few different things, general mechanics. And one, it's resources that you can acquire for yourself or for trading purposes. One, a need to have things that you haven't gotten to create a trade system or, a social interaction system. And the last one is depth to different branches, because as long as you have the depth that things go deep enough, no one person, well, there might be one person out there, but the majority of people aren't going to be able to have the time to actually collect all the resources they actually need. And resources can be anything. I'm not just talking about metal and wood and that. I'm talking about, building skills, anything in the game. So you have to have these three elements, and I see the depth kind of being there. Obviously there's a high level of skill for builders. There's going to be a lot of depth to crafting, different things like that. To combat, it looks like it's going to have a lot of depth too. That combat's already a little bit intimidating, not intimidating, but it's tricky. There's a ton of nuances to it, and this is just the most basic system. So I see the depth there, and I see the resources there, the different types of resources that they've created, but yet there's still gaps in kind of the need loop is what we're talking about here that we've kind of been debating. There isn't yet a way for everybody to need each other yet, and that's the part that we don't know yet. But once they get that, I think they're going to have that final piece of the necessary pie, these three major elements to an MMO. Because no MMO, is going to be successful without those things, because it's just going to be a single player experience at that point, or it's not going to be enjoyable gameplay. So, but I'm done ranting.
I feel like a lot of our topics end with either we don't know yet or we don't have it yet.
Yeah.
So
That's what keeps us in business, though.
That's
So
true.
true.
So we could spend a whole show on this, but we aren't intending to spend a whole show on this. So one of the other things that's going to be coming out in December, an expansion of caves, and with that there'll be the elimination of island tiers. I think they said caves all the way down to the core of the world. I'm curious to see what that means. What do you think, Tenma?
Honestly, I mean, once they actually bring all the caves all the way down to the core or the lowest level they possibly can, and they actually implement the tier system within those cave systems, whether or not, I'm looking at the thing right now and it's telling me, all the way down to the core of the world plus more chamber variety, etc. But I don't see in that line for the December 10th and 17th whether or not they're actually implementing the tiers into the caves. And that's what I'm kind of wondering about, if they're actually going to implement the tier system once those caves go in. And if that's the case, then all islands will all be the same tier-wise. In other words, it actually will progress down this way instead of island.
I think that is actually the goal, is that they want to get the tiered progression. Right now, I think they technically could do that. It's just they don't want to have all of the resources in such a very short depth of space. And they kind of want to have a reason for people to kind of travel around a little bit. Now that they're actually going to be able to have the entire system working in place, I'm pretty sure getting more of the materials per island was the least of it, and it was something, like I said, just something that they could just change some values and have the gradient of what materials appear where expand further. It might be more technical than that. I have a feeling it's actually a fairly simple system to reconfigure.
Along the lines of that, the new caves and the new biomes and stuff that we're kind of talking about here, the thing about that I'm excited about, and I'm only excited if it kind of works out the way that I'm hoping it does, but I'm really hoping that, islands start to feel like more of a community. Right now, they're so, I know there's people that have claims everywhere, and there's no sense of community yet, or smaller communities outside of the guilds, which that, we've talked about that conversation, so we're not going to talk about that. But we, other than that, like, I want to see islands kind of come to life, start seeing the world come to life, where as long as you're on your island and you have now access to all the different materials you need for the most part, now whenever you travel, it's just going to be more of like a sightseeing thing, to go visit other people's claims or go visit friends. But in order to actually play, the majority of your gameplay is actually going to be on one island. You're going to start getting to know your neighbors. You're going to start interacting. You'll see them building with things. You like, basically, if you see another person's claim and it's made out of another type of material that you seem to not be able to find at all, hardly, now you have a reason. Hey, I'm going to go to that person. Where are you getting this material at? Do you know where it's at in one of these caves? Like, they're going to be able to. That's what I want to see happen, is kind of these community building things where it's causing people to interact. Like, that's what's been lacking for so long. And I see that the new biomes and the new caves, all that depth, has some potential, but we don't yet know enough to know whether or not that's actually going to create that type of, or incentivize that type of gameplay. So we'll have to see, but I hope that it does, because I'm really excited for islands to start feeling like mini communities, which is what Dave Georgeson's talked about a lot, with like Sci-Fi Bay, Angel Bay. They see people starting to form these groups and communities, but it would be nice if there were even more, natural core elements to the game that kind of encourage that type of thing, even more so than they currently do.
I think the lack
really
of the lack of natural core mechanics is fundamentally the biggest issue with, or the biggest reason, not issue, but reason why you don't see that. And once we get the ability to have more content, just more time, people need to spend more time being able to be in one place and have a reason to stay more, spend more time doing that one thing. Once that's possible, once they can go down into their caves and get rare resources and whatnot, then it takes away time that they could be spending running around in the world just viewing other people's claims. I mean, right now, all resources are found all over all islands almost in the same way, except for the tier sections of it. But they're scattered all over the surface. Once that moves down into the caves, people have to spend a lot more time and be a lot more focused on being in those caves.
Ley lines.
Now, when we have
ley lines actually go
ley
into
lines.
the depth.
Sure. Okay. There we go. Well, either way, they still have content to find on their server. Right now, all content is by going to other servers, because the only content is looking at other people's claims. A big concept that we can talk about here too is they've talked about taking away the ability to free transport to anywhere in the game, right? So now you might have to pay for that. So if that happens, that's going to also create a scenario where people won't want to travel to other islands all the time because they need to actually earn those things.
Yeah, I think it was a good mechanic. Sorry, Sog, go ahead.
Sog.
I'm talking too much. Go.
Sog, go ahead.
Caves, the big question is that we haven't even touched on yet is we know that the teleport system with evac to safety and instant teleport to friend and instant gallery port is a temporary system. We have on weeks of December 10th and 17th the addition of ley lines, which Neuro touched on briefly, that is supposed to be the key method for traveling around. You'll still be able to craft crystals, but even the gallery was intended from the beginning to take a crystal to go to a claim. So yesterday, I was messing around in a cave thinking about what's it going to be like if it goes all the way down to the bottom and I have to climb out. What if I don't find a ley line crystal towards the bottom? What if when I'm in there, I don't hit escape and evac to safety to pop back up to the surface? And it takes a while. Like, you could pulverize to the surface. Neurotoxin has some inside information here. I don't know the answer, and that's what I want to hear.
I have a feeling, just like we can pop open the map and see where the hub is at, where the spire is at, we'll be able to use either the map or other means to detect where the ley line crystals are at, kind of roughly relative to where we're at. Even something kind of like the sounders that we have, where they just kind of blip way out in the distance, so you kind of have a direction, and if you really need to pulverize your way there, you can do it.
Yeah, I'm excited for the ley line system to get added, to start creating more of a travel system that's, inside the game, because I feel like the current teleportation system we have now feels almost external. It doesn't feel like it's part of the game. You're just kind of using something to warp around wherever you want. I'm really excited to see some type of fast travel built into the game that either, takes achievements to unlock different things, or, starts helping create this island community type thing too, where people start building around different ley lines that have different values of importance. Because I think one thing we do know, anybody correct me if I'm wrong, but the ley lines are not going to be the same. There's going to be like small ones, medium-sized ones, and they're going to have different things around them. The main hub is going to have a lot of things in the main spire, but the other ones are going to have less. And depending on where they're located, they're going to give you access to different things, so they're each going to have different values. So I'm really interested to see when that system comes, what type of dynamic it creates and where people value their claim space. Because right now, like, claim space is, there's not really any structure to it. People kind of either build around the main spire, or they want to pick something that just looks totally beautiful, and you don't really see anything in between that. There's no other resource at play that causes people to put their claim in a certain place. So Tenma, you raised your hand. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I'd like to see a total elimination of islands and have it just very large continent, and then implement the ley line system implement, your different hubs to get around all the different locations, make it a heck of a lot easier to get around to another person's island of some sort. You'd have like one continent per server, period.
I like that.
And just merge it all into one. It's going to make transportation a hell of a lot easier. I don't have to jump around, to all these different islands to get over to my buddy's claim that I just want to go over there and jack him upside the head. I mean, it's just going to make it a lot easier by doing that. Plus, once you actually get that tier system put in there, oh, joys, I'll be happy.
I wonder if we're gonna have remote queuing for battlegrounds like WoW has for the instances. That'd be pretty funny. It'd probably actually work pretty well to allow you to just PvP with your buddies and then go back to mining or wherever you are at. It'd be a really convenient sort of thing to have. Now, there's something that I was wondering. This kind of touches on something that you've been saying, Felix, about being able to build the community around the islands and stuff like that. When we finally wipe and we go to open beta, should the islands and the server names persist, or should they completely change so there's no preference or anything?
I don't know. That's a tough question because I know there are people out there who are really attached to their, whatever their server is, or, and the server names can persist. I think that's fine. But as far as the islands go, I think, I'm not sure what to think of that system yet. I still haven't seen enough of the final gameplay that we're supposed to get to know whether, or to have an opinion whether the size of islands is a good choice or not. Partially, I think it's a technical issue that because of the way they have their map design with a live map, it's actually showing this, long distance view of all the voxels at their different current rendered state. If you're further away, they're in crappier, quality, and if you're close, they're good. But anyways, I think that is affecting maybe the island size right now, because if they're doing the map that way and that's the way they want their map to function, they might not be able to, technically do it that way without some major revisions that might take something after EverQuest Next before they have the time, to dedicate to something like that. So
you were talking about the naming system for all the individual islands. I mean, you could still keep those. Those are regions on the continent. Like Pit is over here and, Butt Wipe is over here or something. That's easy. I mean, it's just regions. And you could build that into your map system.
That's where I would be building, over at Butt Wipe, because that's about all I'm good for.
Yeah, I think Butt Wipe was on Omid's list of the 10 naughty servers. I can't remember.
We probably shouldn't talk about the other ones because I'm sure that was probably the most PG one of all of them.
I think that one was banana, right, Viz?
What? Oh,
banana.
I think I need to get another one now.
Never mind.
But yeah, I mean, I guess the thing I'm seeing is that because of their stated intentions for EverQuest Next and how they're doing Landmark, I have a feeling that, Landmark has the potential for some major changes after EverQuest Next comes out, depending on how they want to revamp the way their world sits, maybe, with continents instead of islands, or, depending on how it all works. Because right now it seems like to me, I don't know if anybody else that's watched, like, the past time-lapse, some of the stuff, the earliest stuff we saw of Landmark from, like, SOE Live last year and shortly after, they had all these different biomes totally complete. I'm assuming they were being filmed like in Norath, in the test server of Norath somewhere, for EQ Next, the test world that they're building. But, it almost seems like we've had a lot of biomes like procedurally, they basically created new algorithms for Landmark specifically to redraw these new biomes in ways that use the EverQuest Next props, but they don't look identical to the way these environments are going to look in EverQuest Next, because that's not something they totally want to do. So I kind of see it as, we're seeing a lot of temporary stuff in Landmark because they don't have a lot of time to make the real unique things that game is going to need to stand alone. And obviously they don't want to. They want to use the EQ Next things because they're trying to build EverQuest Next. So I see Landmark as being like, I almost have a feeling like a lot of the stuff we're talking about is stuff that we won't see for years, because they're going to get to the point where they're now fully into EverQuest Next, and Landmark is going to be, slowly getting developed. There'll always be some people working on it, but, the major big overhauls won't come until after EverQuest Next launches. But that's kind of my thoughts based on what it seems like it's curving, and we're learning more every week we learn more from them, and it just, I don't know, it seems to me like that's the path that it's on.
One
That's the
thing
first time I've heard silence in this room.
I'm going to push us along. We're actually in our last half an hour here. One thing we haven't talked about, we talk a lot about claims or claim vendors. Have you heard any of the devs talk much about what we're going to use as far as a monetary system? Has that been
I keep
said
hearing
anymore?
them say claim vendors, but then they don't. I feel like I never hear anything more. So it's like a very kind of like mysterious concept for me.
Well, last week they did tell us that you can't. What was it? You can't sell or you can't buy items with NPCs. Like everything's
Yeah.
going to be crap.
You can't sell to a merchant, and that is not the mechanism by which currency is created. We did not get the information as to what it was. So it's not a go to an NPC and turn in the resources you don't want and turn it into, gold, which is really just whatever you or coin, whatever you. Ratio per unit of material. It's there's a different mechanism that we don't have.
That's got to be a huge one because that would really isolate the gaming experience if you could do that, which is I'm sure why they don't have it, because people would just go mine their own stuff, they get what they want, the extra stuff they sell, and they're in their own little world. Whereas some other mechanic, and we have no idea what it will be, but hopefully will cause people to exchange the resources they don't want and maybe incentivize that somehow. I'm not sure what type of system that would be or look like, but has anybody played an MMO out here that has some type of resource exchange system that works for this type of thing?
I've never played an MMO that a artificially created currency was a positive aspect of the game.
True that. But I'm actually really excited for this concept. I think it's really it adds to the if I have like a meter of like hardcore and casual, like maybe like a scale is better. I feel like this adds a little bit more to the hardcore scale because a big thing is selling to NPCs and other games, and it always seems meaningless. On top of it, like being like kind of theoretically strange or factually strange in real life. Like you don't just go to your local store clerk and be like, "Hey, I found this piece of wood outside. Let me sell it to you." Besides that being really wrong, it also is just it feels like it's going to make like what Velix was saying more interaction between the community, because you'll have to either trade throughout the community to get your items or to get the things that you want from your materials that you've gotten out of farming and mining and battling monsters and stuff. But it's overall, I think it's going to be a really positive and more serious / hardcore mechanic, and it makes me excited.
One thing I would love to see with coins. I'll be real quick though. I wish when it comes to a trading system, I wish they let us sell stuff for whatever we would want, not like a certain gold piece. Like if I want to put something up and charge 1 million copper or something, you know what I mean, or something within a range, like
naming a price or setting
like an auction house, essentially.
That actually kind of sets up into what, like, the thought that I had. I'm wondering if maybe one of their goals is to not have an established type of universal currency, because that's one of the things that causes a lot of issues. I don't know if anybody knows, like, the issues with Arcade right now and their auto, detection system that's, for the botting and spamming and gold farming and all that there's actually some people that weren't hacking that accounts have gotten like auto banned, and they're in like a 20-day long process trying to get through appeals to get their accounts unlocked for people that didn't even do anything wrong. So it's having its own issues, but I wonder if this might be SOE's way of trying to maybe combat that modern day like farming by not having a type of universal resource in the game. Maybe, I'm sure they'll have gold, obviously they will, but it not being the end-all be-all to everything you do and own and buy in the game, which every other MMO basically out there for the most part has done. They have their currency, and that's how you buy everything, that's how you access everything, other than where you actually go physically in the world.
Honestly, I don't think there needs to be one. Honestly, I think the materials you mine up are just as good. You treat them as their own monetary value. I mean, ethereal, however you want to say it.
Sorry.
You know, it's a lot rarer than what say copper is, and so it already has something you can somehow balance out to figure out how much that's worth. Say a cloud bangle boots or whatever the heck they're called now. Say they're worth 6,000 copper or something, but it could only be worth 10 ethereal. It's that balance off effect. Eventually, there will be a set standard somehow, some way. Somebody will figure out some way of working it out to where we can know, okay, this is worth this much. And, they did the same thing in WoW. I mean, they had their own monetary system, and had charts and all this other kind of stuff you could
It's
figure out.
interesting because it goes into a philosophical idea of most modern countries operate on a currency system, and a lot of more third world countries operate on a bartering system where people basically do this. They exchange things, services for goods and different things, and money's not really a big part of the culture. Whereas in modern civilized countries, it revolves around currency. So I wonder, if that's kind of a way to look at things when developing a system like this, because we're all kind of naturally, as modern nations that have gaming as an industry and a design field and things people do for entertainment, that's not something that is natural to us. So it's really going to be an interesting concept to get people to understand how that works. That's actually not something that is really emphasized in our culture in any way. So that's a really interesting. I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there. So
Sog brought up a good point. There's no third world country that doesn't use currency, but at the same time, it's the big question here is, do a bartering system would allow for much less corruption in it? I mean, it'd be much more face value. People will put what they want up for face value, and like you said, the people will accept or not accept. But having a currency will allow for in real life, it allows for a much more efficient and more streamlined ability to allow people to do more, accomplish more, but at the same time is much more susceptible to corruption, gold farmers in the game, for example, that kind of stuff.
Whether there's an official currency in the game or not, the community and the economy will trend towards a situation where one specific item is considered to be the universal trade good. It's any game that I've been in that doesn't have a specific currency but allows trading, you end up trading in health potions. It's worth eight health pots. And I played a Android trading card game called Rage of Bahamut, and one of the items was a potion that basically allowed you to do another quest to potentially get another card, and that you earned through various events, but that became the trading currency. It was how many of these was a card worth, and there were charts on the internet and all this stuff. But I've been in a couple other situations. It always comes down to which one item becomes it is the currency. So the system isn't any different with actual trading back and forth, because we naturally are due to familiarity, we trend towards that. There will be trades other than using the currency anyway. Having that happen, nothing stopping that happen by there being a currency. You could still say, I need 100k stone and I've got 1,000 rubicite. Anybody just want to make that direct trade? Or you say, I want to sell 1,000 rubicite, and then you see how much stone you can buy for that amount later. With whether there's a middleman or not, doesn't stop the direct trade from happening.
Well, there's also one other thing to consider with using a material or an item as currency versus currency as currency. Other than the original Diablo, I can't think of too many games where currency was actually assessed for weight and value and size and stuff like that. So that's one of the major advantages of currency, is something that is essentially weightless and you can carry as much of it as you want or need. If I'm starting to deal in volumes of millions of gold ore, for example, to do transactions, I have to build infrastructure to hold all of that gold. That's a shit ton of gold. Like, if you think of how much gold that actually is in your inventory, in treasure chests, building claims just to put down piles of gold, that is like loads and loads and loads of gold. So that's one of the reasons why I don't know if it would work quite as well as Landmark. Whatever, if it's a material-based sort of thing, someone's got to be able to keep that material somewhere, and that starts at, you got to basically become your own personal bank.
Well,
There's one other thing I kind of want to touch on, is the value of all of the materials relative to one another is only relative to how the crafting system works. If the tiers of crafting or the harvesting tools are the only things that use tier 1 for this level, tier 2 for this level, and the higher level armors and stuff like that, you might need Ethereum and copper to make it, or you need things from all the different ranges. At that point, it kind of lessens the, this is the tier 5 material, it should be worth way more than the copper sort of thing, and ends up kind of almost equalizing them a little bit. Ethereum's still going to be higher effort and higher quality, but it's not going to be like, worth 10 copper ore for every 1 Ethereum.
yeah, I think that what Sog was saying about, one specific resource tends to generally become, the mode of currency no matter what system you use, and that's, basically because people pick whatever one is the most convenient, and it becomes that. And gold, in games, that's like kind of the no-brainer that, paper money nowadays, that's what people do because it's the easiest to carry around. But anyways, and now look at the move to digital age with people just carrying a card around, because that's even easier than cash. So, I mean, it's all a matter of the least resistance. And I know Locke used to say that kind of all the time, but, one thing we don't know is what type of trade systems they are going to have in the game to facilitate convenience of exchanges, to where maybe you're not necessarily, lugging a giant load of gold over somewhere or transporting, because I don't know if anybody else has played Firefall, but one of the systems they have in their, auction house type thing is kind of like a reverse buy system, where you basically look through the crafting system, pick out the exact item that you want, and you list the price that you would pay for it, and somebody can click on that and basically fulfill it. Say, oh, I'm going to buy that, and they'll click, hey, fulfill, and it lists as, they're going to make it, and then they go make it, and the trade happens automatically the same way it put in an auction house.
Yeah, they had something like that in Aeon. And honestly, I don't see gold, I don't see Ethereum, I don't see any of those becoming the standard, currency. I see copper just because everybody has to have it for their claim.
But that's going away as soon as they actually put the moats in.
Yeah, but either way, I mean, and talking about the third world countries, yeah, nowadays there's no third world countries that doesn't use a currency. Roll back 300 years, the Indians did. They used the barter system.
Yeah, well, I mean, and not to say that third world countries don't use currency, like they obviously do, but in a lot of them, it's just not, most people don't have it, and it doesn't, it's not easy for them to get and trade for and stuff, so they basically just, trade with services and stuff, and even though their country has currency, it's not their primary method of exchange, I guess was the point I was trying to make, but...
So I want to transition to one more topic before we end here, and it kind of might relate a little bit, I guess, is collectible templates is going to be going in December as well. And what they have listed on the blueprint, they actually refer to them as pages, collectible pages to create items. I could see something like that, if they're tradable, becoming a kind of hard, fast currency system.
We'll definitely start infusing elements of economy unless it gets to a point where it actually gets saturated and there's a short list of people who have all of the recipes you can just go to and get stuff built. It's one of those sorts of things where they would really, really, really have a hard time keeping up on the community and our ability to find the things and make them available to everyone. Because that's kind of the funny thing with the landmark community. We are really friendly with each other. I have a hard time believing there's going to be people out there saying, no, only I can have this sword and shield combination. You have to find your own.
We're not in open beta
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah, I was.
Go ahead, Tenma.
Touche.
Oh, sorry about that. I was actually a part of the group that was trying to gather up the basic template systems, to be given out to all players. Everybody will get them. And then they've got other templates that you'll find inside the cave systems. I was trying to find that list of all the people that was a part of that through my Twitter here, but there was a bunch of people. So.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting element of the game as well, because you have, all of a sudden you've got another type of resource, everybody's going to have their basic ones, but once they put that out there, is, you can find a specific template out, by adventuring, all of a sudden, and well, that's just another thing. It kind of loops us back into our other game loop problem, but it gives the people something that might make builders less valuable, but so I don't know how happy I am about that concept, but I don't know. Sorry,
We don't know what
I
they're.
don't just back into that. So I'm gonna shut
We
up.
don't really know what they could template anything, pretty much, couldn't they?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as far as
My
taking it off.
concern with templates as loot is that it's a poor substitute for the idea that you have to earn your build tools. It's like, remember in Alpha where you had to actually craft your build tools. You had to earn the right to have a smooth and align tool, and a lot of the original builds, there are people who built things without the line tool and without the smooth tool, and they did a pretty good job. But a template, there are some templates with exceptional value, and there are thousands of templates that really only mean something to one person. So the question with these loot templates is they're either going to be not valuable to you, so you may want to give them away or attempt to sell them to someone who may value it, or they're going to be considered like this is necessary. That feeling of like, why do I have to go find my building tool? This is something in the game, and if it's really good enough, it's going to be something that you can't make with your building tools, that you can't replicate well, or behaves in a different way. So then it's that whole thing of that separation of, if I'm a content creator and if I'm a designer, why does that gamey stuff outside of my claim limit my ability to do what I'm awesome at? So then I hope that it hits the equilibrium point where, it doesn't feel like either of those, but we're going to have people on both sides being like, don't give me junk, and don't make my necessary item a drop.
There's only one thing that I can really think of that makes the loot template more appealing than, say, a purchase template, and that's that I'm pretty sure if you loot it out of a chest in the cave, you can fully edit it. You can pull off voxels, do whatever you need to it, unlike a purchase template where it's locked in and that's all it's ever going to be, plus or minus, I think, painting and changing out the props. So that's one of the major advantages, is it potentially gives really, 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 complex shapes that, yeah, they might be, not that they're impossible to do, but they might be things that are, you're looking at a few hours of effort to put that specific configuration, that pattern or that shape or whatever together that way. So that's the sort of stuff, it helps people who have less building skill put things together that they can then manipulate and do more stuff with, rather than buying stuff off the market that if it's just one voxel off or something, they pretty much have to chuck it or not use it or whatever, because it just doesn't work.
That's so interesting that you just pointing that out because kind of it helps bridge some of this gap more, kind of in my head, anyways. That Player Studio could be an area where there's an artificial kind of gap filler for this loop where, builders may not have anything to give players, that incentivizing them to interact. But if, all the builders are basically making the most money through Player Studio, for the most part, it will primarily be builders with the in-game mechanics. They're getting this, artificial boost of cash because if people don't want to get the builder to actually build it for them, they'll just buy it off the store, and then that person gets more cash, and they're kind of financially ahead of everybody else. So if they inject that back into the game, they can buy things from the cash shop as well to trade to people for things they need, or to buy their resources, like off the cash shop, use some of their income to cycle it back in and buy their resources, so they don't actually need players to harvest their resources for them. It's kind of weird, but I mean, it just kind of clicked in my head when you were talking, Neuro, that last point of being an artificial gap filler. That I'm not necessarily a fan of that concept, maybe, but if it ends up working, I'm not really going to complain. So that could be a good way of doing it based on the current structure.
Tim, I think you were going to say something, right? And
I was just responding in chat there. Sorry.
Well, the issue, I think that ideally that it's designed to work that way, and people have said with Player Studio that right now we're still selling to the sellers, but then the customer base is going to come in. But I don't buy it. I think that it's still the same people, because if you're not interested in building, why are you interested in a template? A builder is interested in a template that someone else has made that they really like and they don't want to do themselves. But where do you bridge the gap for giving someone interest in selling it? So the builders are still the one buying materials from the cash shop. The builders are still the ones paying for templates. So I feel like it becomes a drain on builders. There needs to be a way to bring things in from other people, and I'm not sold on the customers aren't here yet. I think the customers are here, because I don't think that the people that don't want to be building, and that's why they're not playing, are going to magically want to be building.
I think Tenma kind of mentioned it very early on in the show when we were talking about, story bricks and that element coming in, because basically once you have that, maybe you have somebody that wants to create a campaign or some setting for people to play a mini game or adventure or PvP, or depending on whatever it is, and they have zero building skills. They're going to be the ones that are incentivized to just buy something off the cash shop, place it down, maybe edit a few things to get it to look the way they want for their campaign, and then have something that other players, non-builders, are going to want access to. So that kind of could help bridge the gap, as long as you're including the Player Studio element into it too, as being this artificial money thing where you're basically having the story bricks type people, the people who are designing levels and dungeons, giving money to the builders through Player Studio, and those Player Studio people are being funded to continue buying their resources and building things without having to go around the world and gather. Or they could just go around the world and gather. I don't know.
Me personally, I mean, no matter how good something looks that gets put up on the Player Studio, I'm not happy with it. I mean, I want some professional quality looking stuff if I want to buy something with real money. Sorry,
I completely agree.
If this is probably the only thing me and Sog ever agree on, but it's the truth. It's real freaking money, and if I'm going to pay real freaking money, I want something that looks good and doesn't look like the S word. Okay.
Well, I think that we're jumping the gun on a lot. Sorry, Temma, were you done, or did you want me to? I don't want to interrupt, but I did. So my bad.
Well, I just want to say that I honestly think they need to implement import from Blender, import from 3D Studio Max, import from Maya, Poser or whatever 3D software is out there. They're going to have to implement that,
That's
or
the
you'll never
website.
see me purchase anything.
That's the website Player Studio. That's the Player Studio that exists for all the other games, like PlanetSide 2, where you're submitting models and it goes through submissions and gets accepted. And I'm really excited for that, and I actually hope they do integrate that with the in-game voting, that us players will be able to look at the props and give them a thumbs up or a thumbs down, or as people do it more, people who are actually more experienced can take a design test or whatever and actually get a special permission to be a prop reviewer. I would love to. I've got 3D chops myself. I would love to do that.
I think I actually disagree with you guys. I think there are so many beyond reasons to want to buy something inside of Landmark Endgame. I think that there will be a lot. Right now, there's none. But one of the ones that I can think of off the top of my head is, I mean, you said it before. It's like Sog, as he walks away. It's a situation where people want to be able to build things or create, let's say, an instance. They want to be able to create an event without actually knowing voxelmancy, without actually knowing the in-depth parts of creating some very intricate pieces. Assuming as well in the future, which I believe we're going to be getting, a prop maker, something to actually create detailed props, and hopefully that'll happen, and or whether it's importing from a different program or it's in-game creation, and all these things happen and create scenarios where builders become it becomes a much more in-depth process and like tactful process. People will want to buy those and kind of use them to create their stories. For example, a builder would be invaluable to a storyteller. I can think a builder, let's say, for example, he spends 2 weeks or 3 weeks building a beautiful house or a beautiful, let's say, actually, I keep saying the weapon shop. So let's say a weapon shop. He built a beautiful one, and he knows that he can sell that for a decent amount of money. Now, let's say that at that time, unlike now, there's also a dedicated community, a large dedicated community who already sees a future in Landmark. They want to play the game until they feel like this is their game, which is a very small amount of people right now. In the future, it's more people probably and hopefully. So we have that. People are willing to invest money into it because they love the game and they want to be a part of its end game. So this is where you start to build people wanting to spend money in EverQuest Next, and I'm sorry, in Landmark. And this is where you see people wanting to spend money on templates because there's a product that is beautiful that they can't make, and they need it for whatever their purpose is inside of EverQuest Next. But at the same time,
No.
I don't like that. I think that it shouldn't exist. But I think that will happen.
For a monetization point here, this is something that needs to be they need to be careful that they don't end up doing. I don't know if anybody, I'm sure I really hope they've talked about this, but they have to be careful that whatever system of the loop they're envisioning, if some of that does involve the cash shop purchasing, to kind of complete this loop totally, they need to be extremely careful that they're not expecting a certain type of player, like maybe all the AI people or what have you, to be the people that actually have the money to spend in the cash shop to make sure the economy works properly. That's the one reason that I'm not a big fan of like it being a major component of the the interdependency loop or the pie. So that's one thing that could be scary, if it is not done right, because you don't have.
To say it and to drive it home exactly. I think that there are a lot of reasons why it will, but I don't want it. And for the exact same reasons that you just brought up, I think it will mess up the in-game economy. And it's something that I asked, and that's actually the question that we had last week about, can you sell to a vendor in the game? That was actually what my question was intended, because talking about ArcAge, you can actually buy things inside of the game with real money and then sell it back to the economy, and that totally fucked everything up. So that was my question to Dave last week, which we kind of we didn't really get, but it's like, how will there be a connection between real money and in-game currency? Because if that is the case, then I think we will run into some issues.
Mm-hmm. I'll agree with that.
But that's two, Tenma. That's you're two agree. We got two agreements going on here. I like this.
It's
We're a
Honestly,
family now.
my
I
real
wish there
money,
was a.
my real money should not have anything to do with in-game currency. Period.
Yeah.
Because I earned that money while I was in the game. But if I want to spend something extra, that's my real money. I don't want the two
So-
to even touch each other.
That's the
So
crazy
should
thing,
we
too, 'cause
have a
it's really
subscription-based game?
popular- It well, the one thing too is that's interesting is that the way Sony's model is they're moving to everything being free to play, yet they offer a subscription access that gives different perks. So they actually give people both options depending on what they want. We'll see also too how much that affects the economy of Landmark, because if people are subscribing basically and they're paying their $15 a month, treating this free to play game as a subscription game, that might give them the recurring station cash to be injecting back into the economy, and
Well,
stuff like that, because
I don't see SC cash as in-game currency. I don't see that as in-game currency. I see that as something that I can purchase with when I want to, how I want to, for things that I'd like to have in the game. But having SC cash as the in-game currency, that's a totally different animal. If I want to purchase, like a potion or something like that, I've got to spend real money to get a potion.
well, that's the thing.
I don't.
Like
I don't
now
agree
we
with
have.
that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with it either, but if you look at the way kind of like the system we're looking at, I hope that we don't have all the information or the bigger picture painted to us already yet, because if they go to sort of a more of a bartering system and stuff is about having its own individual value, not necessarily using primarily a currency in the game, if you're able to buy resources off the cash shop, you're essentially buying you're buying the in-game currency with real currency. So that does, it does infiltrate right there. It depends on the type of trade system they want in the game, because right now you're able to buy, resources on the cash shop, and if people are actually trading with those, it means that people can spend real money to purchase things in game because it translates directly. So I mean, that's the thing, that it could be really bad if you start
That's
merging
Arcade.
this whole player yeah.
It's already
And
going
that's-
to cross over. We know that you're going to be able to trade items that you buy on Player Studio in game.
So
We know that
there was a
you're-
question. There was a question
I
in
was
chat.
able to hear all that while I was running around, by the way.
Yeah. So there was a question in chat that I actually, as we're running out of time here, brought something to my mind that I'm curious about. Maximilian had put, how many people do you think are going to pay real money and their own time to provide free content to other people? And the question that actually sparked in my mind is, if here we are talking about builders putting up their templates for real money, should storytellers be able to do the same thing? Or would that even...
I really want to be able to sell the interactions that I'm able to create, whether it's a piecemeal interaction that you can just, drag and drop the different parts and you get the different interactions, or if it's like an entire story that I'm selling, you can just put it however you want, or actually the ability, if we get it, to add kind of things that are randomized and procedural, where it's the generator that starts the event, but the event is scaled for the difficulty for how many people are participating and all of that stuff, and the reward scale and all of that, and it's just fine-tuned and just absolutely perfect, solid, can't make a better game out of it sort of thing. That's the sort of stuff I would love to be able to do. I've been waiting. I created the Combat Daily show partially because eventually it's gonna become Story Bricks Daily, and actually that's been kind of on the on hiatus for a little bit, unfortunately.
the key word...
I agree that we should be able to sell any kind of coded item, like a boss mechanic that we put together, things like that. Like in Project Spark, you build something called it's a logic cube that's an invisible prop that you place in the game, that you put in all of these items that you can all of this code that you can then attach to a mob, and it's saved like that, and you can upload it to their gallery and other people can use it for free. in something like that could be in Landmark as a story bricks or upload for station cache. And that kind of system exists in Project Spark for free already.
And
Pretty
I
much
want to
just
talk about.
another-
Oh, go ahead, Tim.
I was
just
just going to
pretty
say.
much.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Bell, you're off today, man.
Pretty much just another purchasable content, created by players. So I mean, that was pretty much all I was gonna say. Your turn.
Go ahead, Bell, and I'll go after you.
All right, so basically, I was just saying, like, I really want to see what type of systems they have planned with, for the people that do the AI stuff and they do the magic of, building story, using the story brick system to build their NPCs to make this awesome story, because, that's not going to be easy to do. That is something that requires a lot of, plot knowledge and knowing how to, take advantage of the system. But basically, my theory is if they make that to where people can basically monetize that service they're providing of doing all these things, how is that going to be? Is that going to be a player studio type function where people pay real cash for it, or are they going to be able to pay the person with some in-game resources, or what type of system is going to be there? Because if they're able to get some type of in-game stuff, they might be able to be the ones directly feeding back to the builders who they're probably having the most interactions with. So that was another connection I thought I would highlight there that could potentially be there for people to, I don't know, brainstorm what you guys think might eventually come as far as I don't know, a way for people to have entry fees, I guess, to their content that they're making, and monetizing it.
And that's actually what I totally agree with. I think that would be awesome. The ability to have it so when you have a claim, you built a story on it, you take away the need for people to even buy templates buy voxel based stuff. Then you make it so you go to a claim, and let's say as soon as you enter, it says a pop-up comes up and it's like, hey, in order to enter this scenario or this instance or this claim, you need to pay X amount, or even have a donation situation where you can go to a claim, experience a PvP event, and then donate to the creator of that. That way you can kind of incentivize people to want to create more content. That's how it works in a lot of things outside of this particular game with content creation. I also think that with what Max asked originally, will people do it for free? I've already experienced a lot of people inside of Landmark that do it for free and would continue to do it for free and do shit like the most complicated, meticulous shit like voxelmancy that will do that for free because they love intelligent gameplay. They love, breaking things down. They love creating things. And I absolutely would think it would fall into a situation where we'd have some incredible designers and people who just want to have an outlet for themselves to, do that kind of stuff.
Most definitely.
Good stuff. All right, Phantom
All right,
X.
well, we are getting close to running out of time. Actually, I think we are over time.
Well over.
Yeah. So, and we got, I think I said I had 17 points here, and we got through 5, which is not bad. I don't have my screen up, so I don't know.
It's my fault.
So what we're going to do is going to wrap up. We're going to start with Tenma, and I guess go around the circle. Whenever it gets to me, someone let me know. And
Okay.
all right, go ahead and start us out, Tenma.
All right. Well, ain't much going on with me right now other than I'm back to work, and when I get my free time, I'll be back, making videos and doing my streaming thing, and until I get my regular work schedule down pat. So, but pushing on, keep going.
Does that go over to? Well, I'm going to get out of the way so I don't have to talk anymore and interrupt people. Sorry. So that you guys might notice the kind of change. I just changed that for today's overlay.
Hold on, I want to say something real quick.
What? Cute jerk. Don't be me. Don't be me this episode. Oh my gosh. Okay, so anyways, there are a few changes happening with 10 ton. EQ Hammer is still going to have content, regular content, not quite as much as it was before. There'll still be some stuff there, but they're not sure exactly what they're going to do in terms of that. we're going to see. But you can definitely keep going there to check things out. I will be posting some articles there next week. Definitely will be coming up on EQ Hammer, but I'm also going to be doing some stuff more for 10 Ton Hammer main site. So you guys, if anybody follows 10 Ton Hammer, you might see some more of my stuff start appearing there. So that's the only difference for me. And I want to continue kind of the things that I was doing shortly before we kind of had like a hiccup and break there with the community article, the Hammer and Nail. I want to continue doing that with the community. So if you guys are interested in that, you know where to get me on Twitter, DM me, or email me. If you have my email, it should be on there too. Thanks.
All right. So, of course, you folks know me, Legendary Neurotoxin. Come at you with a whole bunch of shows every week. Live feature rant Wednesdays after the Landmark live show. Dead feature rant if you're an H1Z1 fan through Tuesdays 3:30 to 5:30 Pacific. Of course, the content and creation show on Sunday 1 to 5 p.m. followed by Evercast, which I'm not a part of, but we love those folks over there anyway. And if you folks have noticed that the Landmark live or the Landmark Daily show is kind of gone away. Well, I traded my street cred for real cred. I actually work now for My Dream. I'm starting next week as a QA and community consultant, so should be a lot of fun. It's like Indie Landmark, so definitely check it out. It's beta right now, so you can go download it, try it out, let me know what you think. And that's what's good in my neighborhood. Gio, what about you?
Everything's good in my neighborhood. Call me. I was gonna say Dr. Phil. Who's the Mr. Robbins? No, fuck. What's his name?
Mr. Rogers.
Mr. Rogers. Yeah, call me Mr. Rogers. No. Anyway, I feel like I should get punched in the face by an invisible hand for not remembering his name. Tomorrow we're streaming Monday through Friday. I've actually been playing a lot of Dragon Age on my live stream, and I'm probably going to keep going because I'm 40 hours in and still feel like I'm barely halfway there. So you guys can come check out the server. The stream, and if you want to take a look at the game. I'm also doing Loregasm on Saturdays at 12 p.m. with Velux, but I'm so glad. I'm so glad because I was going to say as well. I just
going out of town. Wife.
So not tomorrow. Not tomorrow, but Saturdays 12 p.m. We're doing Loregasm, and of course Friday Night Fight Club coming up at 8:00. So we will see you guys hopefully in an hour to get some PvP competition, doing like pretty awesome giveaways, $25 station cash giveaways. So yeah, there's no reason not to at least come by and give it your best. That's it from me. What about you, Phantom?
Yeah, Nexus is it's still there. Personally, I don't know what else to say. Use it for what you want it. I'll never close it. So, personally, yeah, I just started some EQ original stuff. I don't know if I'm going to stream or not, but actually, Sog and I are going to be on the repopulation actually tonight. So I don't know if anyone out there is going to be trying that out, but definitely give us send us something, Twitter, a message somehow if you're interested in playing. Yeah, that's it. Who's next?
Hi, everybody. I've not been streaming as much. I've been working on my website, sog.tv, writing some editorial articles about Landmark. I've been playing more Landmark. And I've decided that the last Saturday of every month, I'm going to do a charity stream to continue raising money for extralife.org. And next Saturday, I'm going to have 10 claims available. Not tomorrow, a week from tomorrow. I'm going to have 10 claims available for community get-together, raising money for some kids, and doing some team-up Cave Ruins builds for anybody that wants to come hang out. If anybody else wants to even stream at the same time, I would ask that you put up your Extra Life link. That we did our thing at the end of October and everyone did a great job, but kids still need money and they're still looking for help. So I'm going to do my part on the last Saturday of every month. This month it's going to be a Landmark team up event. Very cool. I think that's it. Tenma, you can close us out. Where are we going?
Drop the mic.
I'm gonna interrupt right
Yeah.
now. Just one last.
Great target.
Just kidding. This one's not for real. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're headed over to Neverhet.
Yep. See
Right.
you all later.
Raid the Neverett.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome member of the community there. Definitely give him a thumbs up, give him a follow, all that fun stuff. And we will see you next week. Bye bye.